Hi, Shannon. Thank you always for your positive energy and amazing Dr. Doreen. How do you decide when to follow through with ABA or let it be? Oh, how many parents are going, oh, yes, pull your chair up closer. When I asked my teen about his schoolwork, knowing that he didn't read all the directions of the project, he would tell me that he can handle everything and for me to stay out of his business. I pushed on to get a time commitment when we can talk about this. His response was never. And he was getting upset. ABA training taught me to follow through, and he got more upset. He did express his wanting to be independent. I want to respect his wishes and also support when he needs. This episode, I followed through and got him to commit to speak about this the next day. Then he put me on extinction. Very confused when to let it be or follow through. Thank you very much for your show. And this is from our haircut mom, aka very confused parent. But you know what? I'm right there with you. I think a lot of us are like, when do I? Because we know it's important to follow through, but when don't we?
Yeah, and I think you might have a lot in common with haircut mom because our children change and grow and become independent and become much more capable. And I think there's no question there's a period of time, especially as a parent of a child with autism, where you have to be all on. You have to take care of everything. You have to think for the child. You have to organize them, plan for them, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the same as any other parents, right? If you have a typically developing child, you do that, but you just do it for a shorter period of time. You do it when they're very young, and as they mature, you let go and let go and let go. For parents of a child with special needs, you hold on for a longer period of time because you have to. You're supposed to. You're more involved in their lives. You're making things happen for them. But then it becomes, the line of when and how to let go becomes kind of blurry. Like you just need to learn, okay, so it becomes harder to trust that they're going to be okay. You go through this all the time with Jam.
Yes.
I know. And it's just because he's like my son to some extent. They just are people who are, despite us thinking, how is he going to survive? They survive. And they actually survive in a very successful way. And it's just they get there in a completely different way than we would, which is kind of an interesting thing. But we would never know that if we don't let them fly.
Yeah.
Now, with haircut mom, and this is a perfect example, you think, here's, like, let me just be the psychologist now for a minute. It's not about following through with ABA. It's about, you always follow through with ABA. You always follow through. But you have to change what you're following through with. That's the issue. It's very, very clear that you're butting heads, okay? What are you butting heads on? Why are you butting heads? From your perspective, you think the solution is for you to have a conversation with him and know how he plans to do his schoolwork. You want assurance that he's not going to fail, and you think the only way to get that assurance is by having ongoing conversation about it, by being involved in it, and by, to some extent, controlling it. Okay, that's exactly what you're butting heads with him about, because what is really important for him right now is independence, being able to make this happen himself. So he is asking for, by putting you on extinction, by avoiding this communication, always remember, what is the underlying thing he's saying? You know how we always say when kids tantrum, you have to ask yourself if they had language, what would they say? It still goes on. It's the same thing. Even when we have language, a lot of times we don't choose the right words. Right. What is he really trying to say by saying, what did he say the first time he said, never? He said, when are we going to get to talk about this? And he said, never, and he's getting upset. But when he gets upset, what is he really saying? What he's saying is, I want to do this myself. I need to be able to do this myself. Okay, so that is the issue. He wants to be independent, and you want to control it. We're now getting closer to what the problem is. It's not about following through or not following through. There's two people who want control of one thing. Okay. So what you have to do is and it sounds to me that he's at the level where you can have a conversation about that, about what I just said, not about the homework,
Right.
about what I just said. So what you would do is you would actually sit with him and say, it's hard for me to release control. I feel like you really want to do this on your own. It's very hard for me to understand that I should let you be on your own because I'm worried about you failing. That's maybe my issue. So what are other ways that you can assure me that you're going to be fine? What are other ways that you can show me that your homework is going to get done well and that you're reading all the instructions and all this sort of stuff? If we can agree on a bunch of stuff and you show me those things, I will completely lay off. And what are those things? So for example, I will keep getting A's and B's, whatever it is, my grades. I will come tell you about my schoolwork, or I will allow you to talk to my teacher, or I will allow you to look at my projects once they're done, or I don't know what it is, whatever it is, like end result, work result. And if these things don't happen, then I will allow you to come assist me. And sometimes, by the way, whether it's a child who's had autism or a typically developing child, it's always easy to let someone else assist, a tutor. Why? Because, and this is a good thing, he doesn't want to fail in your eyes. He doesn't want you to think any worse of him. He will open up much more to a tutor. That's like, very honestly, that's the truth, always. That's why I always tell parents, if you can, get someone else to tutor him, because it always turns into you have a different relationship with him. Your mom. Like, mom needs to also be there when he's frustrated. Mom can't be the source of frustration, you know? So having said that, it's a conversation about how you feel and how he feels, rather than about whether or not he's going to get the homework done. Once you talk about how you feel, then you can talk about things you would like to see on a regular basis that would allow you to back off. Then you really have to back off. And if he's not able to make those grades, then you have another conversation and say, okay, so you're having a hard time. I don't want to be the one to push you, but let's talk about getting a tutor, or let's talk about help. Then you can hit the topic. But otherwise, I mean, this is the same problem every parent has. And I had this exact issue with my son, and he was having a hard time with math. And I was like, okay, well, I can't deal with, like, how am I going to deal with this? Like, he just rejects, when we get into this subject, he gets so emotional. Because you have to realize, for our kids, they might be struggling, and they might be very well aware of the fact that they're struggling, but they feel embarrassed to talk to you about it, because for them to come to you and say, I'm struggling, it means I'm failing. It means I might come across as not intelligent to you. It's all this negative stuff that goes with it. So, you know, in the end, what I did was I actually got someone to be his tutor. They ended up, that whole relationship became a huge friendship that influenced my son's life in a million other ways and helped him grow up as a man. And it all was a fantastic thing. And in the end, he did great, you know, and he passed and got B's and so A's and did very well with math. But it's the issue of, I think, a fast solution would be really to hand over the reins to someone else who doesn't know him. And a side solution, something that you should do anyway, is have that conversation of why you are worried. Explain to him your own frailties, your own fears. You know, our kids, it helps them to know some of this stuff is our own issues. It's not about them. Because the more you push, the more you try, the more he feels incapable, or he thinks you see him as not being capable. Does that make sense?
It's great. Great sense. I feel like I need to lay down on a couch because I needed that talk too. It was wonderful. That's so helpful.
Good. Because it's just, we get into this stuff and it's not worth it. It's not worth the battle. Yeah. It's not. You're not winning by getting him straight A's.
But I think so much of our identity is about, I have to make sure that I'm there for my child. And I think you hit it on the nail about we don't know when and how, you know, to fade ourselves because we're totally. Like so
Plus
ingrained.
Also ask yourself, and Haircut Mom also ask yourself, would you prefer to have a child who feels dominated and controlled and angry at you for controlling him, who's getting straight A's,
right? Or
a child who's getting C's and is self-confident, independent, and loves you, and has established a different kind of like more cordial, like friendship type relationship with you. I chose the latter, and what happened was with my son, he brought his own grades up.
Yeah.
The issue, as parents, we live and die by what they accomplish. But the truth is, when you think about success in the world, I mean, it's not dependent on what grades you're getting. You know, I had a 1.3 grade point average of my first quarter at UCLA. 1.3, that's subject to dismissal. Like, let's just be honest, you know, and I've done pretty well.
Yes.
It's like it's not necessary, it's about all the other stuff that's going on at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want you to know that I've had an opportunity now to meet Haircut Mom. We've been friends through this,
nice.
But we have met now. We're going to conquer the world together, she and I.
I believe it. I believe
it's very
it.
fun. Okay, and then let us know how that goes. Okay, let's take a break. We've been going for a little while. Let's take a break, and then we're going to be back with more Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Oh, is she here? I didn't know she lives here.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for military families, 10K and 5K run, walk, and family fun festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder, so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, get a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma, working with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to Act Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here, of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor.
What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being Act Today that does a fantastic job.
Act Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
Thank you all, to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does Act Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight two battles. One, to protect our country, and another, to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Devil Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff or an email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you're gonna have the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
Sign up for next year because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she is answering your questions in real time. I'm going to move on to, I just want a programming note. Every week, at least 2 people write in and say, where can I find the template for the Teaching Emotions booklet? It was one of the Smarties that we did that you guys love so much. I want to let you know that if you go to our Facebook page, and if you go to the photos part of our Facebook page, it lives there permanently now. Because we used to put it on the crawl, but then it would get moved down and you guys would have to search for it. So it is in our photos. You will see that there are a series of them, and all you have to do is save them, and you can print them and make your own emotions booklet. It's a really good project. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely check out our Smarty series and find the one that's the emotions booklet. It's a really great craft for you to be able to do, and we give you the templates for the whole thing on the Facebook, on the photos section of the Facebook. Okay, want to move on to what can I do when a facility of therapy treats a patient with autism unfairly?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, that's not a good situation, and I would recommend that you start by probably talking to someone there and let them know that you feel like your child or yourself you're being treated unfairly. I think it's important to be objective and describe what it is that you feel is unfair. People have different definitions of what's unfair or fair, and I think it's important to be just descriptive, objective, and say these are the things that are happening that I don't like, and to really vocalize it with someone who's in charge there. Sometimes things happen and the person might not even be aware that something bad is happening, or they might not even be aware that you're seeing it that way, and they might be able to change things slightly or explain things better, and sometimes it helps a lot. Like, I'll just give an example, we had to discontinue having a lot of group clinics, and a lot of parents thought, okay, this is unfair. And then we explained to them that the reason we're doing this is because all of the insurance companies cut funding for group clinics, and we're still doing it enough, but it's costing us a lot, but we're still doing it enough to allow us to have some overlap with our staff, but we had to really downsize. And then they didn't think it's unfair anymore because they understood that it's not up to us. We're being treated in a certain way by insurance companies or the laws. So I think it's important to try to get an explanation for the things that you feel are unfair. And then ultimately, if you can't come to a compromise, if you can't communicate, if they're not willing to communicate, if there's no solution, then you should probably always try to look for another site.
I think it's really hard in our community. In fact, we talked extensively last week about an article that was written by Ron Fournier, our guest in the next hour, that was written in The Atlantic about how there's a shortfall between our national laws have made provisions for a certain amount of care, but there's been no allocation of funds to the states to make that happen, and that there's a shortfall. And he did a really riveting piece in The Atlantic about what happens as a result of that, and that sometimes autism parents get accused of battling everybody, because sometimes you don't know. But a very real thing, he interviewed a lot of people, state officials, who said, when I don't have the money to afford to do the thing that there's laws for, I try to avoid these parents.
Absolutely, and it's so tough. I mean, thank you for bringing that up, because this is an ongoing and big issue for us. Like, there's certain things that parents perceive as being unfair, and they don't, like, some parents won't realize that either things are being done that are to the benefit of their child in some way. It might seem harder for them, but it's beneficial for their child. Or there's just no option. Everybody has to kind of compromise in some way or another. One of the things recently for us that we deal with a lot, Shannon, is the fact that we did some studies and we realized that center-based therapy is by far more effective. So we're trying very hard to educate all of our families and to tell them, look, I know it's harder for you to maybe drive to a location, but it is so much better. And we didn't see it before, and thank God we've seen it now, and we just got accepted, that publication. And it's like, you need to bring your child in. Believe me, it's for the best. But yet the parent could perceive it as being unfair. because they have to now get up a half an hour early and maybe drive to the clinic and drop off their child before they go to work or something like that. So sometimes our perceptions of what is unfair just have to be talked about.
Yes, absolutely. I think that that's the key too, because sometimes you don't know friend from foe.
Right.
And there are some people who will try to block you from getting certain amounts of funding, and it makes us be on alert all the time, where we feel like everybody's against me.
That's right.
But everyone isn't.
Right.
And so absolutely communicating and asking, and then once you've communicated, if people have demonstrated to you that they can't, then that's a different conversation. Then they won't.
Right. Absolutely.
So okay, great. Want to go on to the next question. My 7-year-old son with ASD may have a comorbid physiological disorder that I would rather address sooner than later. He gets ABA, and we just started with a psychologist to help us as a family, but should I take him to a psychiatrist for a deeper intervention regarding what may be a comorbid concern?
Right. And I can't respond to that because I don't know exactly what the issue is. I feel as a psychologist, I'm a psychologist before I was a board certified behavior analyst, so, and I'm both. So to me, a lot of times it's important, it allows me, being a psychologist allows me to see psychological comorbidities that I wouldn't normally see if I was just a behavior analyst, obviously. And vice versa. As a behavior analyst, my eyes are open to how to analyze behavior in a much different way than I would even as a behavioral psychologist. So it gives me a very good ability to see both sides. And I think that if I was just a behavior analyst, which is most of the world, if I was a behavior analyst and I was treating a child who had some physiological issues, I would not be able to guide or advise. And I think it would be important probably for the child to also receive treatment from, I'm not sure what the disorder is, so I can't say whether it should be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or another type of professional, depending on what the disorder is. So clearly, I feel there is value in that, but having said that, because I want to make sure that there's consistency in the team, for instance, some of my older children who have a lot of psychological, very, very serious issues, I mandate that the ABA supervisor and the psychologist and the psychiatrist meet at least once a month. That is very important because there has to be consistency in the overall plan for the child. Now, many of our kids are on, let's say, dietary interventions, or they have a physician who's doing quite a bit of intervention as well as what we do. It's extremely important in my mind that there be communication between the supervisor and the physician. There isn't often. Often the physicians kind of look down at ABA supervisors and don't respect them the way they should, very often. And I think as a reaction to that, ABA supervisors don't necessarily have respect for physicians. And it's a pity. And I think there should be a lot more. The fields need to join and work well together, and that hasn't happened yet. ABA supervisors have a huge impact on the child and the family. They control, full time pretty much what the child is doing, and they can change the child's behavior positively or negatively. And I don't see how they can't be communicating with physicians, because medication changes behavior. Dietary intervention changes behavior. Everything, the family structure changes behavior. So all of that kind of whoever else you see, make sure it's consistent, make sure those people all meet together. That's the big key to it.
Wonderful. We have some follow-up on the question about the homework from both the person who wrote it in and another person. So the person who wrote in, our haircut mom, said, Dr. Doreen, glued to the screen listening to you. It's like you were there with us while my son and I were butting heads. You are spot on as usual. I've been afraid to ask him many times because of the embarrassment. Then when I can't contain anymore, it doesn't come out well. All you mentioned is exactly what I'm concerned about, confidence and trust with me as a parent. Thank you for the action plan and great solutions. I can talk to my son again. He tells me to relax all the time and not to worry. He is the more mature one. And thank you, Dr. Doreen and Shannon from the Haircut Mom. Now, somebody else wrote in and said, what's a good way to ask a high-functioning older kid about his homework without him getting defensive? Saying things like we don't trust him or that we think he is doing poorly. Thank you for your show.
That's perfect. And thank you for those questions. And thank you, Haircut Mom, for the feedback. Just love hearing that. You know, and this is something that we all go through, and I think it's a matter of just establishing with the child what's okay. Every child will have a different level. You know, with my daughters, it was always like, and I know this for many of my kids here at CARD, it's a different thing. It's like some kids are very willing to share all aspects because they get more reinforcement out of you knowing. It's hard to explain this. For some kids, if you as the parent are part of the whole worry with them, they feel better. And some kids, and mostly boys, don't want you to know because they don't want to look like they're failing. So I think the way to have these conversations varies, and it has a lot to do with each child's strengths and weaknesses. For me, one of the things I found worked for me with my own kids and with the kids that I treat here is making light of the whole subject. In other words, letting them know. I think it helped my kids, for instance, when they heard that I used to struggle with math, when they heard that I used to have a 1.3 GPA, when they heard all the difficulties that I had. It made them realize that it doesn't, if you're having difficulty at one instant, doesn't mean that you're a failure in life. I share a lot with my kids my own weaknesses, my own frailties, I suppose, because it helps them see that everyone has something that they're horrible at. I let my kids laugh at me when I do silly things or when I do something I'm not good at, because it's important for them to see that I'm not the boss and they're the weak person. You know what I mean? It's important to establish the friendship, because hey, our kids share with their friends. Why do they share with their friends? Because they don't feel judged. Not that we're judging, we're not, but they always feel like we're judging. And it's really, really important. You know, I think one of the things my kids all three would agree is they never feel judged by me, because even when they tell me something, I'm like, God, I know that sucks. Like, oh my God, I don't. And as parents, we always try to find solutions. And I think when we try to find solutions, sometimes giving someone a solution means I know better than you do. So we have to kind of slow down on the giving solutions part a little bit. Sometimes I'll even, like if I know one of my kids is very sensitive to something, I'll give the solution to the sibling and say, hey, you might want to suggest that to him, you know, or something like that, because it can't come from me. Or I'll suggest it to my husband and have him, like, it just can't come from me. So it's all of those things that changes the conversation. It's come down to their level a little bit more. By just telling our kids we're worried, you're bringing yourself down to that level. You're explaining to them, this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with me. This has to do with me being afraid that I wasn't a good enough mom, and that's why you're struggling. That's what it has to do with. And letting them understand it's about your own stuff helps a lot.
It's amazing advice. I'm so glad we're recording this. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with a question about assessments to get you ready for the annual IEP and a person who has gone through a single case denial. So we're going to come back with those questions after these messages.
I love this one. I love this one.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of June, I figured we'd do some cool things that are kind of like summer camp activities. So the activity we're doing this month is making a shoebox guitar. The materials you'll be needing are an old shoebox, a paper towel roll, a pencil, a stencil, rubber bands, a crayon, and an X-Acto blade, which only the adults will be using. So first things first, I have a shoebox and I painted it just so it's a little bit more interesting. This is an opportunity for your kids to decorate however they choose. They can keep it simple or do some stripes with paint, or you can always use, stickers or tape instead of paint to decorate it. All right, now that I have this, I'm gonna take my stencil, place it on top of the shoebox, and I'm gonna draw a circle somewhere in the center, okay? So now that I have that, I'm gonna take my X-Acto blade, which is why this is for the adults, and cut out the circle. Next, we're gonna cut out a smaller circle at the top of our shoebox guitar. The reason we're going to do this is so that we have a place to insert our paper towel roll, aka the stem of the guitar. And I'm gonna grab my paper towel roll and I'm gonna trace the outside of this so I can cut a hole on the top of this too to stick this in so it just looks a lot more realistic. It won't be usable, but it'll look pretty cool. Now that it's been traced, now I'm gonna cut it out with the X-Acto blade. And again, this is something that only the adults should be doing. Now that I have both of the holes cut in this, I'm gonna take my guitar strings and place them on. As you can see, it's missing one thing. It's stem, so now I'm gonna put this in the hole we just cut out. All right, the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my crayon and put this in. And then after that, your guitar is totally done and you're ready to rock out with your kids. And if you're really cool, you'll make another one so you and your child can play together while doing socio-dramatic play, or work on imitation skills where you play a pattern on here and then they try to repeat it. I hope you and your child had lots of fun making this. And until next time, rock on.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, and she is answering your questions in real time. I promised you that we were going to take, there's one question that had just come in about assessments, and of course my iPad went away for a second. Here we go. Dr. Doreen, what kind of assessments should we do annually to help determine needs for the IEP? And they said, thank you.
So that's really good. Thank you for that question. The IEP is a little bit different than some other stuff. So it depends. I always have, I feel like I have too much to say about everything. So it depends on what's currently in the IEP. So for example, I could have right before we reduced working with schools, about a couple of years ago when insurance came in, districts had gotten to the point where they would limit the IEP goals. I don't know if you remember, but like LAUSD, for instance, had said we will not accept more than 3 goals. And we're like, what, 3 goals?
For a year's worth of education?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so let's assume that's not what we're talking about. Let's assume we want an actually accurate and precise IEP. Then what I would suggest you do is the skills assessment. Now, skills is the single only developmental assessment out there in the world that has been validated and found to be reliable. No other assessment exists. We have the Vineland, which is a standardized test, but it doesn't give you specific individual goals. Skills does. Skills is the single assessment out there that has shown reliability and validity. Now this is,
and I just want to add to that a lot of times we assume that means it was valid with doctors, but the study showed it was valid with parents.
Yeah, so what that
questions.
means is that reliability means a few different things. Reliability means that if you answer the questions on skills and then you answer them again tomorrow, they're going to be very similar. It'll still measure the same things accurately. It also means if you answer the questions and your husband answers or your wife answers the questions, you're going to be reliable with each other. Mm-hmm. So it means inter-rater agreement as well as reliability over test-retest. So that's a very important thing. Validity means it actually measures what it says it's supposed to measure. It means that when you answer a question on skills and you say, my child doesn't have the skill of, let's say, telling jokes, it's accurate. Your child really can't tell jokes, and then we know what to teach him. So it's very important to do the skills assessment and to do it regularly and to keep updating it. So the way we do that is that when a child enters CARD, we have the parents do first a brief skills assessment, which is a little bit shorter, so we don't scare anyone. And then in their first month of entry, we ask the parents to fill out the actual assessment. The actual assessment is lengthy. If your child, the higher functioning your child is, the longer it can take. I've heard that for the highest functioning child, it'll take somewhere like 20 hours. 20 hours means you're working on it every night for 2 weeks, you know, it's a lot. But it's extremely detailed. Like it'll ask about every area of functioning of your child. Now, for an IEP, some of those areas the school district couldn't care less about because they're not going to deal with. For instance, depending again on your school district, the school may not want to deal with self-care issues. They may not care if your child needs dressing skills or toileting skills or whatever it is, because those are things they're not going to be able to teach them in school. They're not part of what they're supposed to teach. So you'll have to pick select sections. Language obviously has a lot of stuff in there, the language curriculum. When you go into the skills index, it will give you hundreds of questions across these domains, and the domains are language, social behavior, cognitive, executive functioning, let's see, play, self-help, which I think is called adaptive. What am I missing?
Social.
I said social.
You said social.
Motor,
Yes.
and academic.
There we go.
And that's 8. And so please don't do just academic. You start with academic. Academic will cover things like reading comprehension, math ability, and so on, and it follows the California curriculum. But I want you to do social for sure, language for sure. If your child's very young, do play. If your child's a little bit older, do cognitive, do executive functioning. You know, realistically, do all of them.
Yeah.
And if you do all of them, you will end up with hundreds of goals, not 10, not 3, hundreds of goals. And then what I would suggest you do is go with the youngest age. So you'll see the earliest goals because it's age normed, so it'll show you skills that your child should be doing at, let's say, 2, at 3, at 4, at 5, and so on. It'll only go up to your child's actual age. So you will start with the youngest skills, which means the most basic skills, and those are the ones you want to make sure are being taught. Now, what we do is obviously everything we're working on is also in the child's IEP, it's in their home program, it's in their behavioral intervention plan, it's in, you know, everywhere. And so that's how you do it. Now, skills also actually provides you language for the IEP. So it can help write the IEP for you. Once you've answered questions about what your child can and cannot do, it links to lessons to teach those skills. And the lessons each have an IEP goal. So that's how it helps you develop the IEP.
And I will just say, you know, yes, it takes a long time to take the assessment, but I think it's one of the single greatest investments you can make in your child and your family, because I think there's a peace of mind there. When you're done with the assessment, we're always, as parents, asking, where is my child in terms of everybody else? And there's no quick answer, but what it does is it gives you a chart that lists all the different skills, and it's a bar graph, and it shows where your child ideally needs to get to for right now, and where they are. And you get to look and go, oh, well, look, they're very strong in this, but this is an area that we need to work on. You learn so much from looking at that graph.
That's so great.
It energizes you, and you go, okay, I know what it helps you to prioritize.
Yeah, totally.
Like I get chills thinking about how exciting it was the first time I saw that graph. I was like, oh, this is what I've been wanting, to know exactly where we are.
Yeah, it's very cool. You know how we all kind of love doing the personality tests on ourselves, for instance, and we'll like say, oh, I'm an INFP or whatever it is. This is that for our kids in terms of skills. It like helps break down your child's overall strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's incredibly valuable because, and then the thing about, you know, to answer the question more accurately, is that you do it, you establish an IEP, and then you do it every year. If you're a card patient, you don't have to do it every year because as your child ages, you get new questions. The questions keep coming to you, so you don't have to repeat the whole thing. But and if you're a skills user, which you could just become a skills licensed user, and it's not expensive. If you want to maintain it, it's $75. I think it's $75 a month. And you can maintain it, and it'll keep updating, and it'll keep giving you new questions every time your child gets a little bit older. And it will then allow you to see progress, so you don't have to re-administer every year, because it'll keep giving that to you. Aside from skills, just to quickly go back to this parent, the other valuable assessment that I like all of my kids to have is the Vineland. The Vineland is an adaptive behavior scale, and it's actually VABS, Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scale, and it is fantastic, and it starts at age, like, I think 1 or 2, and it goes to 99. So your whole life you could repeatedly, and it's a questionnaire, so you can fill that out and about your child, and it'll help you assess how they're growing in all areas: communication, adaptive, daily living, communication, and so on. And then the only other assessment that I think is incredibly valuable to do annually is a language test. It's very important for our kids to do a language assessment every year, because it shows areas of weakness in speech. And then finally, for our higher functioning kids, I always do a repeated social skills inventory of some type, and it changes because they get more advanced, but I always measure social skills as well.
Okay, I want to give, since I have this and I can read it, if you're interested in getting skills, you want to go to skillsforautism.com, or you can call 877-975-4559. Again, that's 877-975-4559, skillsforautism.com. And it will, once you've done the assessment, you can add the lesson that goes with it, and it gives you the IEP language. So you can go into the IEP saying, here's what we want to teach, and here's the IEP language. And I have done that in an IEP, and you want to talk change in the conversation, boy, stuff happens in a different way when you do that.
Yeah, that's
and it's
great.
lovely. It's
That's
so
great.
good. Okay, we only have just enough time to deal with this question. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, thank you so much for answering my question a few weeks back. We filed grievance to our insurance to allow us for a single case agreement with CARD. Hopefully we'll get answered by next week. They did get a denial of that, and we talked on the phone yesterday about that. But in the meantime, we signed up for Skills. Currently, he is getting 20 hours, and we also requested to double that. My question is, once we are approved for that, will he be at the center for 40 hours a week? If not, how does that work? Do we drop him off at the center base and then bring him home for the home based? I'm thinking how to adjust his nap time. Any tip would help. Please also, can you give me more info on a person to contact about your new school here in Los Angeles?
Sure. I mean, and if you have their information, we can certainly give them names of people to talk to for the school. But do you have any more details about why they got denied?
The denial was, according to the report, and I talked to a couple of people here, they were saying that what they were getting is fine. Is sufficient. They are, I think I can say, because we're not saying who it is, it's through Kaiser. But yet Easter Seals cannot take them, so they farmed them out to another place. The supervisor at that place believes that the child should have 40 hours, but she subsequently left that place. And so that when Kaiser reviewed it, they said, we think that 20 hours is fine and that what you're getting is fine. And the family is saying, we think we need center-based. We need more of an opportunity for him to do all the things that he's doing and get the opportunity to work with other kids. And they just said, no, we think what he's getting is fine. So she is getting her denial, her, I've lost the word in my head.
Appeal?
Appeal, that's the word that I want.
So now she's going to appeal it.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's important. And also Kaiser they can argue with you about hours, which we will argue back, but they can't argue with you with location. Julie should probably know about this, our public policy, because there's a law actually currently under review in California, and I think it's passing, which says insurance can't dictate the location, school, home, or center, which is a big deal. And
so if you ask for center, they have to be able to provide that to you.
It's none of their business where it is. It's the provider's business where it is. That's what the issue is. And you don't have to ask for one or the other. They just need to give funding, and then the provider, it's kind of like, does the insurance get to select where you actually have a procedure? No, the doctor decides if your procedure is going to happen at the hospital or if it's going to happen as a surgical center or at their office. The doctor decides. It's the same thing with ABA. So if Kaiser specifically is debating the center versus home, that's something we need to know, because we will go after that.
Great.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So I'm glad about that. Now, secondly, once we get 40 hours at the center, there's lots of stuff that happens. One is we'll find out how much he's napping, when he's napping. He can nap at the center. We will get all the stuff for him to make sure he has a quiet space if he needs to. Young kids need to nap. That's important. Otherwise, we'll work him off his nap. Around age 2.5 to 3, we start working our kids off naps. So that's not a problem. We'll do that as well. How is that work drop for that he will be at the center? So we start very early and we go very late, and we can definitely provide him with aftercare if you need time to get back from work. There's no question. We just keep working through. Like, we will keep him. He can go. We will do his schedule with you, so he has social activity during the day, so he has physical activity during the day. Our kids that are with us all day are pretty active. Like, they get a whole variety of stuff. It's not just sitting down and doing things all the time. We have playgrounds, all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, once we get information, Serenita will give you information about the school, and then we can get that going as well.
Right.
That'll be lovely.
Fabulous.
Did I answer all the questions
I think that you did, and I will make sure to get back in contact with her. But that means that we've got the chance for one more question. Trying to decide. I think I want to go to the food one. I'm about to try to begin, or is there one that you
Sure,
prefer
no,
to
I
go
just wanted to quickly say, yes, I do have a clinic. I'm at all the clinics, but this is where I am predominantly. This is in Woodland Hills, California.
Because somebody wrote, does Dr. Doreen have a clinic? I would like to have her see my son for best advice or assess him.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to just get in touch with CARD headquarters and ask for me, and you'll go to my assistant, and she will set up a time for you.
Very cool. Okay, so I'm about to try to begin on new foods with my son for the first grade school year. I'm so scared, but he has to be able to eat a lunch that doesn't require to be heated up. Gosh, I remember when this was my panic.
Yes.
He currently only eats about 6 or 7 things, and he's 6 years old. I know 20 times is needed to present something. I love that you guys learn this. But what is the best way to start to approach this? Do I need to pull out the big reinforcements like I did with the potty? It doesn't have to be on the show, the question, but I think a lot of people can learn from this. And you gave your email, which so we won't share. Please help and thank you.
No problem. So if I get this right, you're just asking how to introduce new foods? That's the question? Okay. So first of all, just so we're not, one of the things I always suggest to parents is don't try to teach new things as you're doing them in real life. So first of all, he has 6 or 7 things that he'll eat. Let's make sure for your sanity, you do some combination of those 6 or 7 things over the next 2 weeks, so you're set. You're not worrying about the next 2 weeks, okay? And you're set, and you have a lunch for him every day. Okay, you're done with the next 2 weeks. You're not worrying about that anymore. Now we're focused on foods we can introduce. So the way you introduce foods is, there's different ways, and I'll try to give a summary about this. What you do is you take preferred foods, the things that he really likes, and those are your reinforcers. And then you have unpreferred foods, things he doesn't want to try, and those are the foods you want to increase. You basically will do one small amount of an unpreferred food, and then he gets rewarded with lots and lots of preferred food. So initially what that means is, let's say, 1 bite of broccoli for a whole plate of something he likes, chips or whatever it is he does eat. And then you gradually increase the broccoli and reduce the chips. And you do this over the course of, let's say, a couple of weeks, so that he gets to a point where he can handle broccoli with a very tiny amount of something he likes, okay? So it's like you're producing a healthy plate. Just like in a healthy plate, you'll have some chicken, some broccoli, and some, let's say, I don't know, carbs that you want.
Rice.
Then rice. And let's say usually the carbs are the ones our kids love. So you'll start out with all rice and a tiny amount of broccoli and a tiny amount of chicken, and then you make those 2 bigger and this one less. That's kind of in a nutshell. Now, but as you do this, and then you do it with another food, and then you do it with another food, and you just keep doing that. As you do this, you have to be very careful. You have to go slow, because if he starts rejecting a food tremendously, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have to step back. there's a lot of guidelines I want to give you. One is make sure the child is distracted somehow. So when we do this, when we start introducing new foods, we'll generally have like the TV on. And we'll turn, like the child starts watching their favorite program, you turn off the TV, and then you'll say, oh, a bite of broccoli. And if you take the bite of broccoli, you turn on the TV and you give a whole bunch of really good food, okay? So you have to have like major reinforcements in place for them for a very small demand. That's the key to it. And basically they understand the more broccoli I eat, the more I get to watch my favorite show and I get all these other foods. And so it becomes fair. And the other thing that's important to pay attention to is usually kids will not like certain foods, not based on the same things we think. They will refuse certain foods just based on, let's say, the category. Like they'll hear, oh, it's a vegetable, and they'll think I hate all vegetables. Start with vegetables that they'll probably like carrots and peas, and then go to other vegetables. And our kids tend to have resistance because of other issues, like for instance, the texture. Texture becomes a very important thing. So pay attention to the types of textures your kid likes. Some kids just like crunchy foods. Then make sure what you're introducing, like instead of introducing cooked carrots, give him uncooked, so it's more crunchy. There's a lot of stuff like that that I could tell you. Texture becomes very important. Taste, of course, is important. Make sure things don't taste bitter or sour. And then, of course, you need to just go gradual because this is a process. When we did food introduction, I think it took, in some very, very drastic cases, it would take even up to 75 hours of intervention for the introduction of, let's say, 1 or 2 new foods. So take your time with this.
And I want to say that the A word, which we're going to go to in just a second, documents this very well.
Right.
And even to the point of showing the video playing and stopping it for him to take his own bite of something. And the dad was like, that's not going to work. Why would you think that's going to work? I love the dad and I love the whole family in the A word, but the dad is like, really, are you kidding me? This is what we've been working towards. Like, that's never going to work.
Right.
And then it works. And then he's mad. He's like, well, if it worked, why didn't we do it a long time ago? Because it had to be worked up to. In any case, we're out of time, but try that. Let us know. It's an adventure. It will be okay. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.
We are not here in any shape, form next week. You're not here. I'm not here.
Yes.
But we will. We have the rest of the show today, and then we have a show next Thursday, which I'm going to talk to you guys about in just a second. But we want to thank Dr. Grampiche.